What if success is not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to become part of something greater than yourself? Larry Kesslin spent decades building the life he thought would make him happy. He created a successful business, gained freedom. He reached a point where he could leave for a month and trust that everything would continue without him. Then, a trip to Uganda confronted him with a difficult truth. He met people who possessed far less than he did and seemed to experience a far greater joy. That realization began a journey from success towards significance, from accumulating more to understanding enough, from identifying with every thought to recognizing the awareness beneath it. Today we explore the stories we mistake for identity, the beliefs we inherit without choosing, and the internal friction created when achievement can no longer answer the question of why we are here. Larry also shares the 5 lessons behind his book, The Joy Molecule, and why he believes joy is not something we acquire, it's something we uncover, something we return to. Here's my conversation with Larry Kesslin. I'm with Larry Kesslin. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you very much, Ryan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Who is Larry Kesslin and what is his mission?
Who is Larry Kesslin? That is a very fascinating question at this point in my life. Who am I? I am. So I am a being that has manual dexterity and the ability to access my thoughts and my feelings. And I am the energy that allows me to observe that information, take decision points from my mind, take decision points from my body, and decide what it is that my highest self, wants to do with that. So I believe that most of the people that I meet are living in their unconscious self or in conscious self, which is all in my mind. And that's how I lived for over 6 decades. And then some stuff happened to me that showed me that I'm more than what I thought I was. So at this point in time, I'm a being that has access to thought and feelings, and I make decisions based on those inputs. How my identity shows up and how my ego shows up, that's a different question. But my identity is pretty clear. I'm a coach and a author and a speaker, and I help people connect to themselves. I help them connect to others, and I help them connect to the resources that allow them to leave this planet better than we found it. So that's my mission as Larry Kesslin. But I am not Larry Kesslin. Larry Kesslin is a character I play in this life. And the more I understand that, the easier life becomes and the more peace I'm able to find.
One on the outside might assume there's sort of an Eastern influence on the way you just kind of expressed your existence. Is
Buddhist
that accurate?
or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah.
I don't know, because I've never been to India. I've never been to Nepal. I look forward to going there. I've been to 42 countries, but those aren't on the list yet. And I do believe that what I've learned through my journey is that the Eastern methodologies appeal to me a lot more than Western do in both medicine and belief system. So I believe that we are solving for healing things that are broken versus solving for wellness. So I don't believe as a culture, I think we chase stuff outside of us versus understanding that it's all inside of us. And we chase accumulation versus human connection. So those are the things that I pursue. As I pursue connection, I pursue peace. So I wrote the book, The Joy Molecule, and I define joy, which is important. If you're going to achieve anything in life, you might want to define it, which is why I wrote a book, Success Redefined, because I defined success at 28 as the ability to do what I want whenever I wanted to do it. And then I went to Africa 20 years later and spent a month in rural villages in eastern northern Uganda. I met people happier than I've ever met in my life. And they had nothing. I'm like, okay, if I have all the freedom to go to spend a month in Africa, my business is doing great. I own my own company. I've got 8 other people working on business for me. And I can go spend a month in Africa and nothing changes and my business actually gets better. Then I have achieved the ability to do what I want whenever I want to do it. And I'm still not as happy as some people I just met that have nothing. So there must be something missing. So when I got back from that trip, I'm like, okay, I'm done with success, at least my definition of success. And I need to be significant. And that's when my journey started in 2012, sitting at JFK Airport on August 17th and just sitting there like dumbfounded after 30 hours of traveling from Nairobi to Cairo and Cairo to New York and smelling like a pig and just trying to figure out what is going on. And I said, I'm done with success. And I read Halftime before I left, and I read Second Mountain when I got back, and reading all these books about what it means to be significant. And then about a year into that journey, I was asked to do a TED Talk, and I realized that success without significance isn't success at all. So then I wrote the book, Success Redefined, which is now the ability to do what I want, whenever I want to do it, while being part of something greater than myself. I still like the freedom part of success, but what I was missing was the part of being part of something greater than myself, that I am more than what I think I am. And that's been the biggest shift in my life. So you asked about Eastern. I don't know, because I've never been there, and I can't say that I've studied under anybody who is that. Yet, when I hear people speak, when I hear Sadhguru or anybody who's come from that part of the world, I align with what they have to say. I believe that we are very lost as a creature. And some of the work I love doing is helping people, especially people with means, teach their children how to see money through philanthropy versus consumption. Because when you have money, I think the best way to teach about it is what it can do for others versus what it can do for you. And I think that's a powerful way to see what money is. A tool. It's just energy. And right now it's not even physical money. It's zeros and ones in a computer because everything's been digitized. We're a crazy creature. I keep saying that, but that's what I believe, is that we are pretty crazy. We don't know what we don't know, and we think we know more than we do.
Yes. Yeah.
Because the problem is we think too much. So you were sharing when you first started about what you're doing, is we think way too much, and we don't understand that. So your body pumps blood, right?
Mm.
Do you think about it?
No, I don't.
Your body digests food. Do you think about that?
I don't.
Your body moves muscles whenever you ask it to move muscles. Do you think about that? Okay, so why would a body that pumps blood, moves muscles, digests food, have a brain that doesn't work by itself either? Why would we believe that because we can inspect our thoughts, we need to? Is it possible that that brain does everything it needs to do without inspecting it? And that if we can quiet that thought, and when you realize that you're a being with access to thought, you have agency over your thoughts. And when you start telling your thoughts enough to go away, the ones that aren't helping you, it's like a bully. If you tell a bully to leave you alone enough, and then you punch them in the nose a few times, they'll leave you alone. Because they're just trying to make you feel worse than they feel so that they can feel better, because it's all about relative happiness. It's the same thing with your mind. If you keep telling your mind, I don't accept that thought, it'll stop producing the thought because it's not going to win. And the brain just wants to win. It wants comfort. It wants safety. It wants the ability to be in control. And there is no control. There's just what's unfolding in front of us. That's it. That's what I've come to understand. And I tell people all the time, I don't mind whether you believe or don't believe in my belief system. Because I have a good friend in New Jersey, and it was where I grew up. And he tells me all the time, the question he has, and he wants to write a book, he says, what are you solving for? So life is all about, what are you solving for in this moment? So a couple of years ago, I was solving for a relationship because I left my marriage. I'm solving for peace and harmony with my kids but at the end of the day, my ultimate search is for inner peace. And the belief system that I've adopted, that I'm a being that has access to mind and body, has brought me so much peace. Why would I not double down on that? Why would I not allow myself to just decide which thoughts have value and which thoughts don't, and to just tell them to go away? And when I do that, they stop. Like they don't come back. Like that little annoying person on your shoulder all the time, whispering in your ear. That guy, that doesn't exist anymore, because I know that it was made up by all the history I had in my life. And none of it was true. It was all my interpretation of what I experienced. It wasn't even what happened. It was my interpretation of what happened.
Yeah. I became a meditation teacher and a yoga teacher years ago, really when I started to do this sort of work and explore this area. And it's funny because I just came across it. I wrote a blog post called Mindfulness Sucks. And what I was experiencing was I was learning how to meditate, and I just kept thinking about all these terrible things that I did. And that was it. And I was like, I certainly did good things, but I just made me realize that I was clinging on to a certain type of thought, right? And basically, I was able to identify, be like, you know what, I'm gonna forgive myself for that, or move on, or just not accept that thought anymore. And that's what you just shared made me think of there when you're talking about the thoughts coming up. It's if you just pay attention, it's like, why would I want to think this? It's eventually the question I had to ask myself, and it's like, okay, I'll learn.
Have you ever read The Untethered Soul?
I have, yes, yeah.
Put your thought process, your talk track into a body, put them on a bench, sit them next to you, and make them your best friend. How much time do you want to spend with that best friend? And I've had the opportunity, the brilliant opportunity to speak with some really amazing humans in my life. Like the Joy Molecule is 8 stories of 8 people I've met since I got back from Africa. And one of them is this woman named Moon Tucker. And she lost her arm in a motorcycle accident. She's a world-class archer. She's part of the Challenged Athletes Foundation. 3 of the stories in the book are a gentleman I did a bike ride. He's blind, phenomenal athlete, but lost his sight 18 years ago. And we rode from San Francisco to San Diego on a tandem bike together. That was amazing. Joe Delagrave, who's the coach of the Real Child rugby team. And all 3 of those stories are the chapter in the book is all about called the identity illusion. That our identity and my ego are what kill my joy. That when I'm attached to what I think I am versus knowing that it's a tool that I use to survive in this world, then I lose my joy. But Moon Tucker's story is amazing. Like I had an interview with her. I had too many men in the book. So in the book, there's 5 men and 3 women. And I was actually, originally I had a 6th man and only 2 women. So I had Jeremy Pointsnow, who's a world champion golfer, happens to be blind. And I've known Jeremy since 2015. I wanted to tell his story. And I'm like, I have too many men. I need another female. So I called Nico, who runs the athlete relations at Challenged Athletes Foundation. I said, I need a woman to add to the book. So he introduced me to Moon Tucker. Moon Tucker at 42 had been married 3 times, had 4 kids, a strange relationship with all of them, did not talk to her ex-husbands, was ready to die. She's like, she asked a friend, she's been in the military her whole career. She asked her friend to get her to Afghanistan so she could at least take a bullet and just die. So she's riding down the highway on her motorcycle. She hits a slick patch. Motorcycle goes out from under her. Her arm, the clothing on her arm got stuck in the drive belt, and it pulled her arm through the back wheel of the tire and ground her arm down to the nub on her shoulder. So she's watching, she tells the story of her being separating from her body, which I understood because it had just happened to me. I interviewed her maybe in April of 2025. And in January, I did a psilocybin experience that totally took me out of my body for 2.5 hours. And she explained the same thing I experienced. And she explained that she watched her body flap down the road and she watched her belief system flap down with it and saying, my belief system is just all BS. It's all stuff I've made up and I can decide whatever I want. So these stories that we tell ourselves are amazing and powerful and rule our lives. And none of them are true. And I'm not saying they're not our truth because they are our truth, but they're not true. They're our interpretation of what happened. And that's not what happened. It's just an interpretation. And they only have power because we give them power. We can, in a blink of an eye, it was funny, right before I did this, I've done 7 psilocybin journeys. And there was 2 of them that were phenomenal in my shaping of my life. Actually, 3 of them. 4 were in groups and 3 were by myself. And always with a guide, always with supervision. And the one, I just got to the edge of my mind. And it taught me a couple of things. First of all, my parents were exactly what I needed them to be. They didn't do anything wrong. There's no reason to be angry for the things they didn't do because I wanted them to do something. Brother and sister the same way. They're exactly what they needed for me to be the person I am today. So why should I ever have any angst or any anxiety or anything around them? It's just love and gratitude and appreciation. And I never thought I was smart because my brother, who's 4.5 years older than me, was valedictorian in my high school. Education came easy to him and he worked at it. And he got a full ride to Stanford. Exchange student in junior year of high school to Brazil. I mean, spoke multiple languages. I mean, smart dude. So to me, that was smart. And I wasn't that. So I must not be smart. But all my friends are smart and they put up with me. And I talk to them about stuff that's meaningful. And I don't like having meaningless conversations. I used to go to dinner with my now ex-wife and with couples. And I would change the topic from something meaningless to something meaningful. Like, I like purpose-driven life. I like doing things that matter. And when somebody would turn it back to something less purposeful, I would try one more time. And if they did it again, and we stopped talking about things that mattered, after dinner, I would say, honey, I don't need to go out to dinner with them anymore. Really nice people, and we can go be at parties with them, but I don't need to spend any more time with them because they don't talk about anything that I want to talk about. Not good, not bad, just my desires in life. I have a very big gene around doing things that matter. And I went to an event last night for Business for Good, which is an organization in San Diego, a lot of people that care about doing good in the world and using business to do good, which is one of the next books that'll come out of the Joy Molecule. One of the chapters is called Redirecting Capital. And it's all about social impact. And the lesson in that part of the book was my work needs to have meaning. So the book is 8 stories, 5 lessons, the 5 lessons I've learned.
Yeah.
My company's called 5 Dots. So what are the 5 dots that I've had to learn to uncover my joy, which is really the truth of it all, is everybody's seeking joy outside of themselves.
Yeah.
And the truth is it's already in there. It's there. We just have to peel away the learning that we've had that tells us it's not. Because ever since we've been born, the world has been telling us you need to be this in order to be safe. You need to be this in order to be comfortable. And your mind agrees. Your mind wants comfort and safety. Yet we don't need that. What we need to do is figure out, why are we here? Who are we? Versus, what is my identity? Jim Carrey has some of the greatest lines ever in the last few years. I don't know if you've watched any of his videos, but he says Jim Carrey is just an accidental character. Because when he becomes a character in a movie, he actually becomes that character.
Yeah.
And he loses Jim Carrey. So when the movie's over, what does he have to do? He has to go find Jim Carrey. Because he put him away for 6 months while he was playing. So he is a character. We're all characters. So if we're characters, we get to choose what we want to do versus what we were taught to do. So, yeah, I have this thing called the 20-something rule. From birth to 20, the world teaches you what it wants to be. Everything that it wants you to be, it teaches you. And from 20 to death, you get to decide, am I going to be what the world taught me to be? Or am I going to be who I was born to be? And my estimation is 1 out of 1,000 was taught to be the person they were born to be. Those are the people that walk through life pretty easily. They always knew what they wanted to be when they were kids. Their parents reinforced whatever it was. And they walk with ease. The crazy part is I know a bunch of them. And I talked to them about this because I wrote the book. And I said, let me explain to you how you process. Tell me if I'm wrong. And they're like, yeah, that's how I work. I decide based on my values, who I spend time with. I understand what my priorities are in life. I chose my partner based on our values alignment and the fact that we wanted this, this, and this, and this, and all these things that they didn't think about. And my one friend has been at Purdue Chickens for 40 years, just celebrated 40 years, was good friends with Frank Purdue, and is their senior VP of sales after 40 years at the company, lives in Maryland. I met him when he was living in Hoboken, New Jersey, and married his college sweetheart, and they're super great couple, grandparents. I mean, beautiful. Effortless from the outside. I mean, there's work to be done, but born to be the person he was taught to be. And my friend Carrie Rich, who's in the book, I met people that known her since she's a teenager. She says, Carrie's always been that. Those are the people that they know who they are. Yeah. Nobody has to tell them. And they think everybody functions that way. That's the challenge, is they don't realize that the rest of the world doesn't see the world the way they do. So I get to spend time with some of them and say, you're pretty unique in this way. What do you mean? Well, I think you're like a unicorn and that you don't have to worry about this, this, and this. And most people do. And they have all this chatter in their head. Well, I don't have that because I know who I am.
We were talking about, I felt that our work had my work had overlapped with yours in certain ways. And one of the ways that I started talking about things, because I was in leadership positions, I would read leadership book after leadership book, thinking that I needed to have something. There was something I didn't know yet, which is why I couldn't access this. And the reality that I found, unfortunately, it took me until I was about 40 to start being like, wait a second, I did everything on this checklist and that the world has given me, and it doesn't feel right. I have the job, I have the X, and I just sort of was like, okay, I want to say burn it down, but I didn't do that. I just kind of was like, that's not me. I silently kind of put it away and was like, and started exploring things that were. But what I found is it was a subtractive process. It was like, oh, that's why I'm wearing this mask. That's why I have this on. And I'm in this process of kind of putting things down. And what I found is that, number one, I've ran into people, even if it's like having a conversation with you, Larry, I see people like this now. And for instance, I just was at a meeting this morning where it was with a lot of business leaders. And like you just said, they just assume that the rest of the world's like that. So that's kind of throws them, I think, a little bit.
We are fascinating.
Yeah, for sure.
The challenges we create for ourselves, the challenges we create for others, because we are unconscious.
So let's go back in time a little bit, because you did. I think people who are listening, my listeners they're sort of working, they're defining their own success, right? So a lot of them, I would guess, are thinking you spent 40 years, you had a successful corporate career for 40 years. And I guess I'm wondering, when did you first have sort of if you could take me to the moment, right, where you realized that achievement and fulfillment, they were sort of incorrectly conflated. They weren't the same problem.
Let's start off. First of all, I left the corporate world in 1993. So I've been self-employed. I've been an entrepreneur for 33 years. So I don't know what it's like to be in the corporate world anymore, although I had lots of corporate clients, and I still don't understand the corporate world, to be honest with you. I understand it, but I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Like, I understand it enough to know that I have no desire to be in it. It's just crazy. The lack of humanness in corporate America today is beyond my comprehension. And my brother, who's, I told you, is pretty wicked smart, is one of the top coaches in the world for corporate executives. And I couldn't do what he does, because I think a lot of it is understanding how the world around them is working and how the dysfunction, because I would tell them all to leave, because when it's out of your control, it's just, life is just challenging when you have no authority around the decisions being made around you. Like, if you have a corporate job, no matter what, you're going to get hired by a boss you love, because that's when you go take the job, and then they're going to get a new job and they're going to get replaced. Like, I have a friend of mine who's got a really good job at a 12,000 person company globally, and he's in his second half of his 50s, and he's worried because the new boss, I don't think they see eye to eye, and there's a good chance he's going to lose his job, and he's making a lot of money. And it's like, I couldn't live that way. I'd rather figure out how to get that $10,000 check once a month and spend my whole month trying to figure that out than having a company pay me $10,000 a month to have a job that I go to 9 to 5. And the tax structure in our society is totally rigged towards people that own their own businesses, not towards employees. So the tax system is just screwed up. So if you make $200,000+, you're hosed. I mean, you lose more of your income than any other worker in our society. So put all those things together, I'd rather be self-employed. So we'll start there. Biggest turning point leaving my corporate career was a week in Colorado with 85 inner city kids. So I'm a degreed engineer, got my bachelor's in electrical engineering from Rutgers. I'm 8 years into my career. I'm 4.5 years into working at General Electric Company. Jack Welch was the CEO, #1 company in the world. And I did not like my life. And I went to Africa. I went to Aspen, Colorado with 85 inner city kids, took 12 of them from lower Manhattan, Henry Street settlement. And we met up with 70+ other kids from around the country, from Denver and LA and Phoenix and New Orleans. And this guy, John, who was one of 5 Black men who happened to live in Aspen at the time, wanted to bring these inner city kids to the city to teach them to ski during the winter. And they did a ropes course in the summer. So I went in February of 1993, and then I went again in July to their ropes course. And that first trip changed my trajectory because I got back from that trip. I spent the whole week helping these kids ski, was one of the hosts in one of the condos where 6 boys were staying, had to manage the relationships with the boys. And I get back that Saturday night, and Monday I go to work and I'm like, those kids were happier than I am. And they got nothing. Like, that's a theme in my life. Like, my first lesson, you were talking about uncovering layers. My first layer in my life, so if I look at the 5 lessons I've learned, there are 5 lessons that are stacked on top of my joy that's inside of me. So what do I need to peel away? So the first thing I need to peel away is my circumstances not define my joy. Whether I'm successful based on society's definition, whether I'm rich, poor, anything, joy has nothing to do with that. So circumstance is the first thing. So I learned that in 1993. And I got back, and Monday, after I got back on Saturday, I called my boss, the one who hired me 4.5 years earlier. And I said, Vince, I'm done. He's like, what do you mean you're done? I said, I can't do this anymore. They had just given me the week off paid to go spend with these inner city kids.
Yeah.
And I said, I just can't do the corporate thing. I've been studying people my whole life. And all the people that have the life I want all own their own businesses. What am I doing in corporate America? So he said, what are you going to do? I said, I have no idea, but not this. And that started my journey 33 plus years ago. April 15th of 1993 was my last day at a corporate job. So I went on this meandering journey for decades and started a couple companies, launched a very successful consulting firm. In 1994, we started a radio show that turned into an online community, which turned into peer groups. Started doing peer groups in the late 90s, which was early. It was the beginning of the peer group era with YPO, EO, Tech, which is now Vistage. And I ended up doing peer groups for people in the same industry, non-competitive based on geography. So I brought people around around the country. The automotive industry called it 20 groups, but they would bring together 20 dealers that didn't compete to compare notes. So I did that for companies that resold technology for IBM, Cisco, Microsoft, those companies, and did that for 15 years. And then the same thing happened again. That's when I went to Africa. So 1993 was this journey with the kids, them teaching me that they're happy I wasn't. And the same thing happened when I went to Africa. There was a whole level of happiness that I never understood and a sense of joy and peace. And I started dissecting it. Like, I got back from my trip in Africa and I brought some really smart people to my house. I went to a conference 7 weeks later after I got back. And the biggest turning point in my life, you're asking for milestones. I was at this conference called Opportunity Collaboration down in Mexico. And I went in 2012, 13, 14, and 2024. And it's 400 plus people from around the world trying to affect social change, solve world poverty. And the first 3 questions I'm asked the first morning in the first workshop changed my life. And those 3 questions were, what is poverty? Who gets to define it? And why are we trying to fix it? And my mind was fucking blown. Like, I just got back from Africa and I saw people that were poor, but I equated poverty to misery and I didn't see misery. So my definition of poverty was off. And then I started thinking, who's really poor? Because they had lots of joy and we have stress and we have people killing themselves that live in beautiful homes raised by people that are caring people that are trying to do their best but have no idea what that child needs. So they're doing what they think they're supposed to do because they were trained by a previous generation that was all in survival mode themselves. And the epigenetics and all this stuff just ripples down and there's so much stuff going on. And then I see these young kids that are 3, 4, 5, 10 years old and they're happy to have a little paper ball to kick around. And they're just filled with life because they know no different. And they have nothing to distract them. They've got no cell phones. They've got nothing. This is 2012. And I'm looking at these people trying to figure out what happened. So when I got back, I realized that I did a TEDx talk in 2014. It took me about 18 months to digest what I'd seen. And I spent a lot of time with really smart people saying, what is it that I saw? And what is it that I experienced? And I came to the conclusion that I called it the disconnected, connected world. The more disconnected we are technically, the more emotionally and spiritually connected we are. And the more we become connected technologically, we become less and less spiritually and emotionally connected. So I think what they had in Africa was deep connection to the land because they still farmed it, deep connection to their ancestors because they still lived with them. They had deep connection to each other because they all had shared common purpose. So I'll give you the connection between these books. So if you see the cover of this book, it says connection plus purpose equals joy. In the book, I actually wrote conscious connection plus purpose equals joy. And the idea was that conscious connection, when you connect consciously with people that have shared purpose, that's where you find the most joy in your life. So the writer who's working with me says, Larry, that's C2P. I'm like, and? She says, well, if H2O is the water molecule, then C2P must be the joy molecule. And that's why the cover of the book is water.
Yeah.
So, and C2P is the joy molecule where H2O is the water molecule. So that sat on the shelf from 2015 until 2025 when I wrote the joy molecule. And it needed 10 years to digest because I needed to find my joy. Because I was not raised with joy, right? I did not grow up in a house that had much joy at all. My dad went broke when I was 10. I got a whole story behind it. It doesn't matter. But my house was not, there was love. My parents loved me, but I was left alone. I was a latchkey kid. My brother and sister were supposedly taking care of me and they didn't. They were dealing with their own crap. And I raised myself and I did a pretty crappy job. So all through my 20s, I was trying to figure out what I was missing and I didn't know. And I had no idea about my identity, my ego, any of that stuff. I was just lost for 3 decades, probably till my late 20s. Then I started finding books. I started reading Way of the Peaceful Warrior and The Road Less Traveled and The Alchemist and everything that I read back in the 90s and into the 2000s. And I probably spent a decade in the self-help section of Barnes & Noble. And then I got married. Then I had a couple kids and I focused on that, building a business, making money, and building an identity. And I did pretty good at it. I mean, last 5 years of my business, I did very well financially. And I started traveling the world, trying to affect change. And those 3 questions at that conference changed everything. Because I stopped traveling internationally to go affect change. Because I'm like, well, why am I going around the world? I'm trying to make them look more like us. And we have plenty of problems in my own backyard. So in 2014, I decided to focus my entire life on San Diego. And all I do is work in San Diego. My previous business was nationwide. Clients all over the place, traveling to conferences. Had no clients in San Diego. And over the last 12 years, I've built my entire life here. All my clients are here. All my coaching work is here. And I just focus on getting to know people locally, and that's it. And total shift. All my volunteer work, Challenged Athletes Foundation and Boys to Men Mentoring, both organizations that profit from the sales of the book. And I love helping them. And I'm trying to get the 2 of them to work together now. Challenged Athletes Foundation has a adaptive surf group. And Boys to Men does a 100-wave challenge once a year, which is catch 100 waves, raise money, trying to get CAF to put together a team to go participate in that event. And I just love giving back. But everything I do now is San Diego focused. I get requests from people online. I'm an outsourced accounting firm in Kansas City. Great. I'd love to connect with you. And if you know anybody who could use our services, I'm like, I do work in San Diego. All my clients are here. All my referral partners are here. And there's no way you can tell me that you're infinitely better than the guy I know that I've been mentoring for the last 6 years. So it's all about relationships. It's all about the connection.
What's made you focus strictly on San Diego?
I live here.
Just
this is my community.
So
this is where I chose to live. This is where I chose to build my life. I moved here on purpose.
So is it about actually being physically connected to them, like presence wise? Is that I'm
a face-to-face person. This for me is fine, but I'd rather be in a room shaking hands and giving you a hug and getting to know you as a person. I prefer that. So for me, I run potluck dinners monthly. I do as much as I can in person. And I enjoy that. I enjoy getting to know humans. And you can do it virtually, but it's not the same.
Yeah, I agree. There was, it's funny, one of the questions that I asked with a lot of my guests over the years doing this podcast was, I had psychologists come up, and early on, I would always hear this idea, we're wired for connection. It's what we're supposed to do. And I was thinking about that and how that was showing up now as I was listening to you. And I was like, why are we talking about that we're wired? We're talking about the sort of anatomy of it instead of actually doing it. They're kind of like 2 separate concepts. And
we're not wired for connection. We are connected.
Yeah. That's almost what I'm working towards here, because, and it's interesting, Larry, because I usually don't have this framework to look, but I just was in a face-to-face meeting with a bunch of people this morning. And usually, to be honest, I connect with people on this podcast. It's a deep source of fulfillment for me just to connect with people in this way. But I sort of had a very strong, it was different being connected with them in person, shaking their hands, looking into their eyes that wasn't on a medium of a screen or whatnot. And, I don't know what's so special about that experience for us.
I think there's multiple layers to it. So I did a survey year and a half ago on Facebook. I put up a survey and I asked people to rank 4 different things you could connect to. So I said, put these in priority order. And let's assume that connecting to God and connecting to self are an assumption. But there's 4 other things we could connect to. Tell me your order and priority. So the 4 choices were the planet, an animal non-human, your art or music, and another human being. Because I thought that most of us would choose another human first, and the other 3 would be, I figured it'd be somewhere between, I thought it would be 80-20. 80% would say another human first, and then prioritize the other 3. And 20% would put one of the other 3 first. And it came out pretty damn close. 79% said another human first. 8% said the planet. 7% said another animal on this planet, and 6% said music or art. So I believe we are here to connect. The question is, connect to what? Some of us need to connect to ourselves. We all need to connect to ourselves first. But for some of us, the planet and touching Earth is more important than another human. For some of it's our music and our creativity is more important than another human. But for most of us, it is another human. So if it is another human, why don't we teach human connection and human communication in elementary school? We teach fighting and disrupting fights. We don't teach communication and confrontation and having difficult conversations and working things out. We teach people to be bullies. We allow bullies, and it's part of our culture. It's sad because America is this place where we promote rugged individualism. And the reason we're trying to, who gets to fix it was the last question. Why are we trying to fix it? Is the last question I was asked in that workshop at that conference. And I think we're trying to fix it to make them look more like us so we can feel better about the crappy life we've developed. Because at the end of the day, their lives are beautiful. I went there to fix them, and I realized that they had something that I wanted. And people say, I bet you can't wait to get back. I'm like, I don't want to go back. It's hot and shitty there. I mean, the weather sucks. And the housing was like for crap. And the hotel we stayed in was disgusting. And I want what they have, which is that sense of connection. So I've been trying to build it here. And why I focus on San Diego, because it's a lot easier to build it in person than it is to build it virtually. For me, I'm not saying that's not true of anybody else. And I'm not trying to solve anybody else's problem. And when I coach people, I tell them, I'm here to share what I've learned and help you see life through a different lens. So I had a company for 20 years, and myself and my partner were coaches. I would say I was a coach. I would say my partner was an MBA and he was more of a consultant. And everybody we hired after that were consultants, not coaches. And the difference between a coach and a consultant in my vernacular is a coach helps somebody walk through their own pain. A consultant fixes the pain for them and hands them back their baby fixed. So if their baby's a business, a consultant comes in and fixes it. A coach walks them through the pain. And in many ways, if you think about it, the school of hard knocks is too expensive in most businesses. And so what if you make a lot of money? So if I fix it for you and now you make more money and I help you sell your business, now what? What are the lessons you needed to learn? Did you learn any of the lessons you needed to learn? Because if I go back to, we're peeling away the lessons to find joy. Joy is not having all the money in the world. Joy is knowing who I am. Well, I define joy as knowing what you are, who you are, and why you are. In that order, because those are the levels of connection. So we as humans love to connect, but in the United States, so I told you I've been to 42 countries. And nobody outside the United States asks me what I do. Nobody. The only place where people ask, what do you do, is here.
Yeah.
So I was talking to a friend of mine who's a speaker, and I said to him, at the end of all my talks, because I want to get back on stage, and I just recorded a keynote about a month ago. I have a sizzle reel, should be ready today or tomorrow. And I talked to him and I said, I have this structure that says joy is knowing what you are, who you are, and why you are. And I want to teach Americans to stop asking, what do you do? And I want to give them a laminated card with 50 questions on it that have nothing to do with what you do and everything about who you are and why you exist. He says, why do one card when you can do a deck of cards? So I came up with these Spark cards, which are a deck of cards. So every suit, every number, and 2 jokers. That's 54 questions, all of different levels. So like this is the 3 of clubs. What have you gotten better at recently? That's the 3 of clubs. 6 of spades. What are you building towards now? 7 of spades. Who are you trying to honor with how you live? Jack of clubs. What fear are you still learning to face? So if you think about it, the way I set it up is the deuce is the least vulnerable question. The ace is the most vulnerable question in each suit. And the 3 suits are different themes. Love and belonging is the hearts. The spades are purpose and legacy and love and connection. So you've got these different themes for each set of the cards. And what I do when I do keynotes is I put a card under each person's chair. And towards the end of my talk, I talk about the what, the who, and the why. And I say, if I had one dream in the next couple of decades is I can help Americans stop asking the question, what do you do? And start getting to know who people are and why they exist. And under your chair is a card with a question. I want you to pull the card out. I want you to talk to your neighbor. I want you to talk about the question you were asked. And you don't have to answer it, but just think about where that question might lead you. And have a conversation about something other than what do you do? Because what do you do is just so intrusive in my world. So when people ask me now, I fuck with them. When they say, what do you do? I say, I'm a dad. First and foremost, I'm a dad. I'm an athlete. I love to travel. And then I stop. And then they'll say, well, what do you do? Well, I play pickleball. I play tennis. I cycle. What do you want to know? Do you want to know how I make a living? Is that your question? And if that's your question, why do you want to know? Well, it tells me a lot about you. Does it really? Does what I do for a living really tell you a lot about? I don't know.
Larry, you mentioned that the order was important. The what, who, why. What makes the order important?
The level of connection. So if you think about it, the what connection is what do you do? So what's your favorite sports team? Those are all good connections. Nothing wrong with them. But they're superficial and they're fleeting.
Okay, I see. Yeah.
The who connection is your values, your essence, who you are underneath the story, underneath the what. And that's a deeper connection that leads to longer lasting relationships. But the why connection is your purpose, is your reason for being. And when you connect around your why, which is C2P, then you have depth. But if you know all 3, the joy connection is the deepest. When you find people that know what they are, who they are, why they are, and they have shared why, it's an amazing experience because you're chasing the same end result. You are clear on who you are. You're not trying to be somebody. You're not imposturing. You're not putting on a performance. You're being your authentic self. And when you meet somebody else who's being their authentic self and they have shared purpose, that's amazing. You can walk the planet together and do some amazing stuff. And there's not a lot of people that live that way. So that's my opportunity.
It's interesting because I've never ever mentioned this blog that I had years ago on this page or on this podcast. But what my blog was called Who Are We? And it occurs to me in this framework, the what was no longer sufficed me anymore. So I was like, okay, who are we? I was asking as kind of a global question. And now I'm really seeing that the work that I'm doing here and coaching is really about my why. It's about connecting and helping people. It's about walking with those with the similar why, I think, so that's pretty profound. I'm realizing that in real time here. So
it's a beautiful
awesome
thing.
It really is. It really is.
We're blessed to be here, Ryan. We're blessed to be alive. We're blessed to have the opportunity to experience what's going on. Whenever I have a moment, and now they're just moments, when I'm questioning anything. The place that I go to is what would have happened if I was born 150 years ago? I'd be showering or bathing once a week in really cold water. I'd be living with darkness at night as soon as the sun goes down. I'd be probably living in some physical structure where the wind was blowing through all the time. I would not be eating a very healthy diet. I'd probably die by the time I was 50. I mean, pretty freaking blessed.
Yeah.
No matter what is going on in my life. I told you yesterday I went down to the beach to spend some time with the Challenged Athletes Foundation. They have a adaptive surf group trying to get them to work with boys to men people. And I met a couple people that are paraplegics. One's a quad. And he broke his neck on a mountain bike. There's no way I can have a bad day compared to that. There just isn't. There's nothing in my life that is that bad that I have to deal with any physical pain like he does or the trauma that he had to deal with. And it just puts my life in perspective that I'm just blessed beyond measure. I was blessed to be born a white male in New York in the 1960s, to live in one of the greatest generations, the end of the boomers, to have all the opportunity that I had in my life. And I squandered a lot of it. I did not appreciate what it is that I had and the privilege that I was given. My daughter tells me all the time, I'm a privileged white man. I am. Well, how am I not supposed to be?
Yeah.
But I'm supposed to use it. I'm not supposed to defend it or be ashamed of it or whatever. I'm here and I get to do what I choose to do with it.
So, Larry, can purpose become another performance? Just sort of
Definitely.
How do you help people guard against that or sort of not allow that to become a thing?
So purpose to me, so when I was in Africa, this is funny, because to me, purpose was my destination. And what I've learned is that all these things I've been learning in my life are all doorways. So purpose is just a doorway to connect. It's not about the purpose itself. So in the Joy Molecule, there's a chapter called the Enough Academy. And I profile a philanthropist. His name is Irving Levin and his wife, Stephanie Fowler. So Irving sold a bank 20 years ago for $500 million. And he owned the majority of the bank. And so he put a bunch of money aside. And 20 years ago, he started giving out money in Portland, Oregon, for everything. He gave away money for the arts. He gave it away to all this different stuff. And about 2 years in, he gave his first scholarship to a local community college. First-gen scholar. Parents never went to college, so this kid was the first in his family to go to college. And he started realizing the impact that money made on that family. Not just the kid, but his siblings, cousins, parents, everybody. And they started focusing their effort. And something that Malin Burnham, who's one of the top philanthropists here in San Diego, taught me, he's like, everybody starts out wanting to give to everything, but you got to whittle it down to your one or two things and focus on those things and do those really well. So for me, it's helping young people become adults. And I have a heart for the Challenged Athletes community. And I love both of them. And I do work around that. I'm starting to work with some of the local universities to teach college students what it means to become an adult. And what does it mean, adulting 101? The stuff is really about happiness and joy. But at the end of the day, dude, we're on this journey and we get to define how we want to play in this journey. And it's just, we're so blessed beyond comprehension.
You know, it's funny. I just had a conversation. I've been working with one of my clients and we're just talking about how yesterday they were looking at their life like everything was a punishment, you know? And
happened to them.
Yeah, like it was it was happening to them. Even though, I mean, there's some pretty significant achievements that were happening, but maybe there was some discomfort or some adjustment. And then the question was at some of these previous sessions that we had, how do I accept this? What is it? Why am I resisting it? What's going on here? And then something happened and we really spent time trying to figure out what this was. There was this experience of, I walked into, wow, what if this was a privilege? What if I just won and I don't realize it? And then they started looking, what if that's been happening to me all the time? And I've just been not grateful for it. And they were sort of their mind was blown at this. And it made me think of what you said. It was a doorway. They just sort of, instead of it being the finish line that they were looking for, it was another doorway. And wow, there's probably another door. Something fundamental happened there with the way they were seeing things.
So my company is called 5 Dots for a reason. And Steve Jobs did a commencement speech in 2005 at Stanford. And that speech, the first 15 minutes of it, talks about his journey. And at the end of the 15 minutes, he says, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And you have to trust in something, in fate, in karma, in whatever, that the dots will somehow connect. So I have come to the conclusion that I never have a bad day. I never have a good day. I have days that have more energy than others. I have days that are more engaging than others, but they're not good or bad, because in the moment, you have no idea whether they're good or bad. You can only label them as things that moved me forward or things that taught me a specific lesson I needed to learn until years later. And that to me is the truth, is that I need to figure out which of these experiences in my life. So the days that I thought were some of the worst in my life turned out to be the best because they made me make decisions. And those decisions moved me forward. So are they really bad days? Or are they just days with more energy? And what do you do with that? So that's the challenge I think we face in our society, is that we label things good, bad, better, worse. I'm trying my best, doing my best to eliminate those words from my vocabulary. So when I ask my daughter, are you having a grounded day? Do you feel more grounded today? Do you feel more connected to yourself? Versus, is today a good day or a better day? Better than what? What is better? Our language is really powerful. When I work with clients, I have these cards on my desk, and they're in different categories. And they're all words that I ask people to define. So this card is alignment, presence, intention, acceptance, enough, and gratitude. And then there's one that's self, identity, ego, authenticity, success, joy, and happiness. So when I have people defining these words, they're soft words. Like, you know what a microphone is, you know what a light is, I know what a wall is, but what is compassion? And what is connection? And what is joy? And what is happiness? And what is a want? And what is a need? Like, Success Redefined, the working title of that book was When Wants Become Needs. That was the title of the book when I started writing it.
Oh, yeah.
And the subtitle was going to be For Very Important Busy People. So When Wants Become Needs for Very Important Busy People was going to be the title. And I didn't make it that title because I wanted to start a new company, and the company was called Success Redefined. And I titled the book that so it would match the company. I wasn't ready to do the work. It's taken me 10 years to redefine success truly for myself, and to get rid of my ego and strip my identity, and not get rid of it, but just know its role in my life. That's really what we do. Ego doesn't go away. It just knows the role it serves, and it can be incredibly powerful. So how do we make it play the role it needs to play versus being the dominant identity in my being's life? If that makes sense.
Yeah. The question that I have is sort of to piggyback on that, sort of uses one of these soft words, but can a person be deeply aligned and still unhappy?
Yeah. Because they define happiness in a way that's unachievable.
That's a scary thought. That you're like, when you say, I sort of got to call, I'm like, what if somewhere I'm defining happiness or success or something that's unachievable?
Well, we keep moving the goalposts. That's what we do in our society. You never get to really celebrate your wins. As soon as you win something, they move the goalposts and increase the quota or whatever they do. So that's how our society is taught. It's not about the win. It's not about the moment. It's about what's next. It's not healthy at all. So happiness for me is getting my needs met. And I've clearly defined my needs. So my needs are food, water, shelter, safety, love, air, and health, and sex. So those are the 8 things that I need. Everything else is a want.
Yeah, it's pretty clear. So let's talk about the joy molecule for a moment. This book came out last August. When you were writing the book, Who did you have in mind that the book was for?
The book was written for me. I write books for myself. I have this construct that we're on this ladder, and every time I write a book, I turn a rung of that ladder into a platform. So as I continue to climb, if I fall, at least I fall to a platform versus grabbing on a rung. So I wrote the book for me to get my thoughts out as to where I am in my life today. And if it helps other people, great. That's why I wrote it. Helps me organize my thoughts. Helps me to get clear to what it is that I believe is important in my life. And if it can help others, that's great. But I really wrote it for me. And I write all these books to help me get what's in my head out on paper. And this book actually wrote itself. The first chapter came 8 days after I did that big psilocybin journey. It kind of came out and kind of wrote itself. And then the next chapter was written months later after I wrote all the stories in the middle. Then I spent 4 hours with 5 good friends, started explaining the book, and I was going to spend all this time redefining Maslow's hierarchy of needs and all this other stuff in the book. And one of my friends said, "Larry, what's the book about?" I said, "The book's about me finding joy." He says, "What does Abraham Maslow have to do with joy?" I said, "That's a really good question." He says, "Just tell the 8 stories, thank them for knowing what they are, who they are, and why they are, and tell everybody what you learned from their stories." Like, that's brilliant. So that's what I did. And then at the end, I took all the concepts and I said, okay, the what, the who, and the why are in that order for a reason. And here's the things that these 8 people taught me. So the first story is about Armstrong, a young man that I met in Africa that I gave $1,000 to take a pilot's test, and eventually have invested tens of thousands of dollars of it in his life. And he lives here in the United States now. And we've been connected since 2012. And he's a wonderful young man. I have lots of stories about Armstrong. But him, and the last story is Trinity, a street kid from Uganda who started a computer training company that is spectacular called Era 92. He lives in Kampala still. And I could go on about the 2 of them, but that lesson for me is circumstances not define my joy. So if you were to see my presentation, the circumstance is just a circle and it gets peeled off and goes into one of the dots in my logo. So, and then the second lesson I learned is Carrie Rich. She was handed $2 million at 26 to go change the world by 2 different philanthropists. That story's in the book. You can read it. And that story is called Redirecting Capital, which will be another book, which will be stories about people that are using social impact to grow companies. So the social entrepreneurship will be the focus of that book, and stories of entrepreneurs that have created connection around. All of this is about human connection. And the social impact one is about connecting to self. So that's the second one, is my work needs to have meaning. So that's the second layer that needed to come off in order for me to uncover the joy that lives within me. The third lesson is all the challenged athletes. Jeff Mata, who's the blind 3-time world champion jiu-jitsu competitor. He's on the U.S. judo team for the 2028 Olympics. He owns a jiu-jitsu studio here in San Diego. Moon Tucker, who lost her arm, and then Joe Delagrave is a coach of the wheelchair rugby team. That chapter is called The Identity Illusion. The more I'm attached to my identity and my ego, the further I am from joy. The fourth lesson is my publisher, Judith Briles. You can read her story. She lost 2 of her children in the first 20 years of their life, one at birth and one at 19, and her 2 boys. And she's almost 80, and that chapter is all about never quit. So the fourth lesson I needed to learn was to never quit, to never give up. And the last chapter I talked about, which is Irving Levin's story, is the Enough Academy. So the 5th layer that I need to peel off of my joy is, when I have enough, what is my responsibility to others? That's the significance part of my life. There are a lot of people that never get to that level. So those are my 5 dots. Those are my 5 lessons. And they're not anybody else's. So I didn't tell the stories to say, this is how you should live your life. I don't give people a framework. I just say, here's my story. The question is, what are your 5 lessons? What are the things that you need to peel off of your joy to uncover what's already inside of you? What is your God-given right? And your ability as a human is to find peace and joy in every moment because it lives inside of us. We've just been taught that we're not enough because our parents said we needed to be something different than we were to make them feel better. And so did our teachers, and so did our friends, and so did everybody else around us. And we just didn't know it. So we're just trying to get rid of this learning that we have that says we're not enough.
Yeah. Larry, you mentioned earlier that You write because it helps you get clear on what's important to you. Being that the joy molecule is sort of the most recent example of that, what did it help you get clearer on?
So once you go through an experience like I did last January, where I literally left my body for 2.5 hours, and my spirit went on its own little journey, and I came back into my body, there's something they call integration. If I just had that experience and I just didn't do any integration work, I'd be back to the same person I was. But I spent a lot of time with this coach, and he helped me figure out what it is that I experienced. And this book helped me do the same. It helped me root in this belief that I'm so much more than what I thought I was. In the first chapter, I talk about basic self, conscious self, highest self. And I also talk about sky, clouds, and weather. And the whole idea that I am the sky, my thoughts are the clouds, and my feelings are the weather. And that when I identify as the clouds, that's when my life gets really challenging, which is what you were talking about with your client, saying that, I'm feeling this way or that way, even though things are going great in my life, because they're living as the clouds when they are the sky. The sky is the one who sees the thoughts. And that's why we meditate, is to observe thought. At least this is my definition. I believe we meditate to get closer to self and closer to everything connected in the world. Yet I believe the basic intention of meditation is to observe thought and to know that thought is just that. It's just thought. It is not me. It is not my identity. It's not my ego. It's just a thought. And that I can choose whether I decide to listen to that thought or not. So I do believe that we are so much more than we think we are. And that's the problem. Alan Watts talks about it all the time. You can't outthink this problem. This is not a thought issue. This is a knowing issue. So this book has helped me know that I find more peace when I'm clear about what I am, who I am, and why I am. And when I live from that alignment.
What's the connection that you've found, Larry, between, let's say, success, significance, and joy?
It's all how you define them. Really comes down to that easy. I mean, for me, success, ability to do what I want whenever I want to do it, while being part of something greater than myself. That's the significance part. And joy is a sense of knowing. And these are my definitions. They don't have to be anybody else's definitions. Define joy any way you want to, but define it. Because I'm a pretty extroverted human, and I've asked a lot of people, what is joy and what is happiness? And I get all different answers. So if I get different answers, the question is, what is it? And I've had people to define happiness the way I define joy, and they define joy the way I define happiness. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But that's not what I need to do. So define it for yourself. But here's what I define it as. And this is where I find peace. And that's my journey. What I am solving for is inner peace. That's what I'm solving for. How can I walk this planet every day when somebody can come up to me and say, da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na? And I'll say, thank you very much. Appreciate your insight.
Yeah. That's pretty, that seemed, I think, to maybe the average listener, that might seem like a lofty goal for them. How might you guide someone, or what might you recommend for them to sort of, it's like, that's one of those things that sounds nice, but it's harder to do, perhaps, maybe, for some.
I start breaking down their belief system. We started earlier talking about your body pumps blood, and where does your belief system come from? And that's where I start. I start with understanding how I'm wired in the first place, and I help them understand how they're wired, how their upbringing, how their experiences in life have taught them who they think themselves to be. And the truth is, they're not what they think they are. So they're a compilation of their beliefs. They are their belief system. And if their belief system is not working for them, I need to teach them how to redefine their belief system. That's where I start.
What does it look like for someone to begin that process?
Start understanding how their brain works for them or not. I work with each client individually, and I channel a lot. So I trust my higher self. I trust a higher being to come through me and help them find their own answers. I don't have any answers for them. I don't. All I have is my own knowing, and I get to trust that or not. And that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years, is trusting that knowing more than I ever have in my life. And that's part of what I have learned to do, is to learn to realize that if I think about basic self, conscious self, highest self, my basic self is my inner child. My conscious self is my age-appropriate behavior. My highest self is my knowing, is my inner knowing. And the more I can live from that place, the easier my life becomes, the more grounded my life becomes, and the more peace I find. So I try and help people do that same thing. Try and help them break down and realize that they are living from basic self, which is your inner child jumping up and down, yelling and screaming, asking for what it wants, and not getting satisfied. But once you become an adult, once you pass 20-ish in our society, you no longer need those things to protect you. Adults can do hard things. Children can do hard things.
Yeah, they can.
Yet we try and protect them all the time.
Yes.
Why do we do that? We make them lack resiliency. It's crazy what we've done to our children.
Yeah.
In the name of their safety.
I talk about this all the time, but I have 2 3-year-old boys, and I want them to have resilience. And that's sort of a question I'm always asking myself. You have to do the hard thing, and trying to create a space for them to be able to learn that in. That's a question I always am asking myself. So you had mentioned earlier when you're talking about Alan Watts, you said it's not a thinking problem, it's a knowing problem. So I love Alan Watts. I did look. My name's Ryan Watts. I'm not related to him. But he, for people who aren't familiar with Alan Watts, how do you simply state the difference between thinking and knowing?
If you're thinking it, you're not knowing it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how to explain it, because I thought for 60 plus years that I was spiritual until I knew I was spiritual. And that knowing came from, so Sam Harris has an app called Waking Up. And in 2021, I was listening to a meditation, and he said, you can't meditate to a place you've never been. Okay, that's intriguing. How do you meditate to a place you've never been? And that's when he started talking about psychedelics and other plant medicine that he had done when he was in Southeast Asia and India. And I'm like, And I had friends I was in a men's group with for a decade, and they were all doing psychedelics. I'm like, I don't need this stuff. This is not for me. And then I started thinking, well, maybe it is for me. And in 2021, I did my first group journey. Did another one in 2022, third one in 2023, and then 2024, I did one with another group that was off the charts amazing. I saw everybody in the room. I saw their life path. It was really pretty cool. And it was too much, though. And then the next 3 journeys, I did one-on-one. And that process taught me a lot about knowing versus thinking. And some people get it through yoga. Some people get it through meditation. Some people get it through running. It's that flow state. It's that state of not even thinking, just knowing that you're exactly what you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And for everybody, it's different. But the thinking part is hard, because most of us, our brain wants control. And I think the smarter we are, the harder it is for our brains to let go.
I think I love the Waking Up app. And I remember being so frustrated at Sam Harris would because I was learning how to meditate, and he would say, now look for who's looking. I'm like, what does that mean? And then it was like one day I was like, it's not, like I was like physically like, what does that mean? Like, are you looking outside yourself, or who's looking? And then I just all of a sudden there was a slight distinction between it's me that's looking at thoughts, and that gap happened, right? And that the way I've explained it when people have asked me about that, like a knowing, I don't know if I've used the term knowing, but it was kind of like it was experiential. It wasn't. I didn't think about it abstractly. I had the experience of that. And people might be like, what are they talking about at this point in the podcast? But I knew what that meant after hearing it, and I was ready for the frustration. And I was like, and it just sort of opened up a whole nother world. And that is sort of what I gathered from, there was a knowing at that point that experience was me knowing that I was not my thoughts. And that was a whole new chapter for me.
Changed his life.
Yeah, that was a big one. So Yeah. Thank you for allowing me the space to say that. So, Larry, I want to be mindful of your time. I know there's some tennis matches that are happening, and you've been incredibly gracious. And so it's funny, there are podcasts where I don't even get to my questions and we talk about something else. This has been unique because I think you answered every one of my questions. I think I had 57 questions and I didn't ask most of them. So I appreciate that. It's allowed me to be an audience member while doing this. So it's been fantastic. I want to there's so many things I could have asked you, and we could have gone so much deeper with some of this stuff. But what might you leave the audience with who's listening right to this point?
I think that the real question is, why are we here? So if you think we're here to accumulate stuff, to win, to accomplish, to get to the top of some mountain, I don't think that's the point of being here. I think we're here to learn. I think this is preparation for something after. And if it's not, that's okay. Because this belief system that I've developed for myself, which is purely just a belief system, has brought me more peace than any other way that I've lived in the world. So I would hope that people would go on a journey to go find themselves. The being inside of you that is observing the thought, the one that is seeing the clouds go by. So I would hope that everybody would search for this understanding that they are the sky, that their thoughts are not them, that their identity is not them, that their ego is not them, that they're a being that has thoughts, that has feelings, that has manual dexterity, that has identity, that has ego, and they get to do what they want with it. Or have this construct like 007, James Bond. And James Bond always had cool toys, right? So make believe that James Bond was planted inside of you at birth. And he went to bed for me for 60 years. And then he wakes up and he's like, cool, now I'm in this vehicle and somebody created this amazing vehicle. And the question becomes, what are the natural gifts that this vehicle was given? For me, it's connection. My card title is Chief Connector. Everybody in San Diego knows me as the Chief Connector, and they know that I connect people to each other. And that is one of my gifts. And the other question is, what is the wisdom that this being has earned over the 60 years that I've been here? So now I get to use the gifts and the wisdom to do as much good and serve others as possible. And in return, my identity and my ego get fed by getting paid for what I do. But that's not me. That's just how I get to live in this world.
Wow. I love that. There's a lot of wisdom in that, and it really resonates with me. So thank you so much for sharing that wisdom with us today. Where can people learn more about your work, your books, etc.?
Everything is on my website at 5-dots.com. The number 5-dots. They can go to my profile on LinkedIn, just Larry Kesslin. And my books are on Amazon, The Joy Molecules in paperback, Kindle, and Audible. And Success Redefined is in paperback and Kindle. Might do the Audible someday, but I never did it. But it's been a pleasure being on your show. I love the conversation we had. And it's enjoyable to spend time with others that see things similarly and have a shared passion for helping others find more peace in their lives, because I think that's a critical step for our society. When we love each other, we have to love ourselves first, and we'll have a lot more peace on this planet than what we currently have today, which is, I don't even understand, but I try not to get involved.
Yeah.
It's way out of my control.
Yes. I have the same feeling. Thanks so much, Larry. I really appreciate this. Larry has such a unique and honest view of how he understands success, identity, and joy. The friction in this conversation is the belief that one more achievement will finally resolve the question of whether we're enough. So we accumulate, we perform, we compare, we keep climbing. Sometimes we reach the place where we're trying to reach, only to discover that the deeper question came with us. Larry's invitation is to stop treating every thought, rule, and inherited belief as a definition of who you are. You have thoughts, you have identity, you have accomplishments, but none of them contain the whole of you. Perhaps success begins with defining what's enough. Significance begins with asking how your life can serve something larger. And joy begins when you stop demanding that the external world prove your worth. Larry's books, The Joy Molecule and Success Redefined, along with his other resources, are linked in the show notes. For more conversations about success, meaning, and becoming more fully yourself, join the Personal Success Podcast email list at thepersonalsuccesspodcast.com. Until next time, keep creating your success.